Welcome to the Podski.
What? Ooh, yeah.
You understand, baby?
Dig it?
Let me tell you another thing.
First name John, last name Baker. Uh-huh. Brother.
Hello and welcome to the Podski. I'm your host, the man of 1,000 gimmicks, John Baker. And today we are back with a regular show. It's just me, myself, and I. And we're going to be covering a topic today that I'm pretty excited about. I feel like this team doesn't get talked about a lot, and it's only because I'm talking about a tag team today. And it's something that I enjoy because this is a look that got us close to it really ushered in the era of kind of what I grew up in. This is the era of WrestleMania 17, which is by far the best WrestleMania of all time, the most important WrestleMania of all time. And this leads us the end of WrestleMania 17 catapulted us into the Invasion. And this is the in-between of the Invasion and WrestleMania 17. And I really want to talk about the Invasion sometime leading up in the future, but I'm not going to cover that today because I really want to talk about this team. The team is the two-man power trip. It is Triple H and Steve Austin. And I just kind of want to talk about them and their run because it was really, really short, and we'll get into why it was really short. I just kind of want to talk about this team because it's fun. It's fun to talk about this team. I just feel like they don't get enough credit kind of for what they did, and it's only because I don't know if it worked it didn't work at the time, and we'll get into that. But I feel like this team is a rare combination of superstars that they don't ever get to be together. And when you put a team like this together, it's never really done. Usually it's rarely done. The only other team I can really think off the top of my head that this has happened with is the Dudes with Attitudes. And maybe that's kind of why they did this a little bit, but not really. That's the only other team I can really compare them to in terms of what they did in the ring and the success that they had. And this, again, I really want to talk about this team because it launched into my favorite run as a fan, and it is the 2002. It's this right here is the end of, for me as a fan, I look at eras, and the era of the Attitude Era is Austin's babyface run. So we're talking like 96 to into 99, 2000 is where I think 2001, definitely it's not the Attitude Era anymore. I think the Attitude Era is dead, and I like to call the Invasion as its own era because it's very forgettable, and it was just so poorly done that it led us into the Ruthless Aggression Era, which to me, that's my wheelhouse. That's what I love as a fan. I love the Ruthless Aggression Era. It's just what I grew up in. And I just really wanted to kind of talk about something that kind of bridged us to that. And, but yeah, so we're going to cover that today. Hopefully you all checked out the Halloween Super Show. I had a hell of a time doing that show. It was so much fun getting together with Bobby Winters and Andretti. So much fun to do that. We got some other good stuff coming up in the future. We have a new segment that we're going to bring in with a new guest. We're going to do a show where we're going to book a federation, book a pay-per-view with our action figures that we have. And I'm really fired up for that. We're going to bring in a new guest for that. So I'm teasing it here officially because we got it already in the works and very excited for that. Hopefully you're always checking out That's So Dolphins Talk. We're going to take a second here. We're going to talk about the Dolphins because I haven't really done a solo show here in a long time. I've had a lot of guests here the last couple of weeks, and kind of feels right to get back to just doing me, and because this is my show, damn it. So, but we're always going to keep bringing in guests and everything like that. I love doing the guest shows. They're so much fun. But I kind of want to get back to just a show with myself. But yesterday was the NFL trade deadline. The Dolphins are in a weird spot because they lost the few games over Tua was out, and they're third in the division. I don't think that's going to stay like that for long. They went out and got their premier pass rusher with Bradley Chubb from the Broncos. So they turned their Trey Lance trade of 2 years ago, where they traded their sixth pick in the draft to move back to 12. They got 3 first-round picks out of that deal from San Francisco. They turned all 3 of those first-round picks into Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Bradley Chubb. Like, that is an insane haul. And credit to the Dolphins. They're going all in. I'm cautious. It's something that I'm not used to with the Dolphins. They usually don't do anything like this. They've never had a team like this before in my lifetime. So they're going all in. Well, hopefully, I want to keep my expectations low, and that's only because I've just been through a lot as a Dolphins fan, and I'm just cautious, but I'm highly optimistic. I cannot wait for these next 9 games of the regular season. It's going to be so much fun, and I'm just so excited because they pretty, barring injuries, they have cemented themselves as a playoff team. And this team is really, really looking good. And they're going to start getting more and more healthy as the season goes on. The offense is just continuously getting better every week. So I don't want to steal too much of Trick or Trey's thunder and eyes from That's So Dolphins Talk. Hopefully you're always checking out That's So Dolphins Talk. Don't forget to download, rate, review, subscribe. Checking us out on Twitter at _Podski, on Instagram at _Podski, and on Facebook at the Podski with John Baker. And let's get into a little bit of news. We haven't done a news segment in a while, so let's get into the weekly Roundup Jones. All right, the weekly Roundup Jones. Have not done this for a very long time. Don't want to continue to do it every single week. Just only want to do it for pertinent information. I think the biggest information, obviously, this weekend is Crown Jewel, WWE Crown Jewel. They're going to Saudi Arabia. That show very well might be not in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. There's been some talks of Iran that's going to invade over there, and they don't really know if they're going to be able to even put the show on. So for safety reasons, Crown Jewel might not actually happen in Riyadh. It might happen somewhere else. Apparently WWE has a backup plan, which they're usually typically pretty good about having some sort of backup plan. But we'll see. I'm really excited for that show because I'm really excited to see how they handle the Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns match. It should be a really good match. They've been doing some they've been doing some really good stuff. I have been on here and I've been saying for weeks at SmackDown. I now, granted, I have had a lot of things going on the last couple weeks, so I haven't watched the last 2 episodes of SmackDown. But the previous 3 weeks that I had watched, I really enjoyed those shows, and I think WWE, man, they are starting to they're starting to heat up a little bit because we're getting into that WrestleMania season. Next in 2 months we got Royal Rumble, and Cody roller coaster, he's going to be coming back, and man, I am fired up. I am, in fact, will be going to WrestleMania this year. I am so excited for that. Got my tickets, got my plane tickets. Mr. Andretti and I are going to be attending, and possibly beautiful Bobby Winters. We are going to be attending WrestleMania this year in LA for WrestleMania 39. I couldn't be any more excited to get out there, and because there's a lot of teases already. The tease that The Rock might be there. So, I mean, come on, like, that's awesome. There's also been talk about that they're going to bring the Money in the Bank. They're going to cancel Money in the Bank as a pay-per-view, and they're going to launch that, and they're going to have that match at WrestleMania. So, like, come on, dude. Like, that's even that's where the Money in the Bank match was born. It's perfect. And obviously, what I'm really excited for is my ultimate prediction here is that Cody Rhodes is going to win the world title at WrestleMania. And I'm so excited because, we all know that Cody is my favorite wrestler. And I'm just really hurt that he left AEW, but I'm so excited that he's in a really good spot with WWE. And I can't wait to see that. Hopefully that happens. That's my prediction. Maybe a spoiler, but we'll see. But yeah, so, and like I mentioned a little bit ago, they're looking to eliminate, them being WWE, they're looking to eliminate the themed pay-per-view shows. So they have like TLC, Money in the Bank, Hell in a Cell. They've already scrapped Hell in a Cell, and I believe they've scrapped also Money in the Bank, which is great news. That is such great news. Those shows, I'm not a huge fan of TLC. I'm not a huge fan of Hell in a Cell as a show, because now you've pigeonholed yourself into booking. So now everyone knows when Hell in a Cell is. So everyone knows that whatever feuds are going on at the time, they're most likely going to end in a Hell in a Cell. So now you've devalued Hell in a Cell as a draw, as a match, because everyone knows it's coming. And I love the idea of scrapping that idea and coming up with just named shows like AEW does. You're not pigeonholing yourself for shows. It just makes too much sense. And it's just because it's all because we got Triple H in there, and he gets it. He definitely gets it. So the other little bit of news is that Shinsuke Nakamura is going to be facing Great Muta at Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan. So like that's an even bigger deal, because typically that does not happen. Typically when guys sign with WWE, they're not allowed to work any other promotion. And that's really big news. That's come out in the last week too. So things are changing for WWE. And you know, I've been on here, I've been pretty critical of AEW, and you know, I'm looking at this lineup tonight for AEW, and I don't know how I feel about it. It's kind of underwhelming for me, to be honest with you. So we got Chris Jericho versus a former ROH champion. I don't know who that'll be. My guess is maybe Adam Cole. I don't know. Then we got Moxley versus Lee Moriarty. That's a whatever match. Like, I don't know. Samoa Joe versus Brian Cage. I'm excited for that. Let's see some more Brian Cage. I'm all for that. Now, the Jade Cargill Marina Shafir match, we've already seen this. It sucks. It's the shits. Shafir sucks. Shitfear. Marina Shitfear. Because not good. We got an All-Atlantic Championship with Orange Cassidy, Luchasaurus, and Rey Fenix. That, you know, anything that Rey Fenix is in is going to be good. And despite what a lot of people say about Orange Cassidy, he's a great wrestler. And we got Jay Lethal versus Darby Allin. Good to see Darby Allin back. Don't know what they're going to do with Sting or anything like that now. So it's pretty I mean, we only have a few weeks until Full Gear. We obviously know MJF's going to take that title from Moxley, and you know, he should absolutely be the face of the company. But I don't know. There's just something about AEW right now that there's just something really big missing. And I don't know what that is. It feels like there's no direction for what they're doing. And that scares me a little bit. Because, you know, I am an A1 AEW fan, but I'm just a little nervous. I just feel like there's no direction, and that's really scary as a fan. So, but let's wrap up the weekly roundup, Jones, and we were gonna cover this week's topic of the 2-man power trip. All right, let's get into our topic today. We were going to cover the 2-man power trip. That was a tag team that was formed the night after WrestleMania 17 on Monday Night Raw with Triple H and Steve Austin. Pretty much what I'm going to do here is I'm going to paint the picture of how the team was formed, the matches that they had the night before, which the night before was obviously WrestleMania 17. And then, you know, this team only lasted 2 pay-per-view cycles. And we're going to get into why it ended. But it ended for a reason. But it looked like that they were going to be ending anyways, just for the way they were starting to be booked. So let's start off with Triple H at WrestleMania 17. So Triple H faced Undertaker for the first time ever at a WrestleMania. Now, they went on later to have two phenomenal matches later in their careers at WrestleMania 27 and 28. I encourage everybody to watch those matches, especially the one at WrestleMania 28. That is the end of the era Hell in a Cell match. It is so good. That is one of the WrestleManias that I first started tuning back into as a fan and started paying attention, was just because those two were in a Hell in a Cell match. Let's get into WrestleMania 17 here. Triple H has a really memorable entrance with Lemmy and Motorhead. They do the live entrance for him. It was really cool, really well done. Lemmy, forgot the words for sure, but I mean, it's Lemmy. So, but this match, I've watched it plenty of times as a Triple H fan, and I feel like it is one of those matches that are lost in Mania history because of what they did later on, basically. But I thought this was a really, really good match. I think that it went a little bit long, personally. I think they could have cut like maybe 5 minutes out of it and it would have done the job. And this was one of the co-main events of the show. I want to add that too. And it's a very heavy brawling style match, spills into the crowd, and it's the really memorable spot for me. So when they're out fighting in the crowd and Undertaker chokeslams Triple H, he goes to slam him and there's like no noise, and it's obviously because Triple H was landing on a crash pad, but there was just no noise at all, and it's really funny if you watch it, if you know what you're looking for. When you think about it, as time played out, this was a great precursor to what they did at WrestleMania 27 and 28. Triple H doing literally everything he possibly can to beat Undertaker, but you can't kill a dead man. It is an incredible display of what was to come, even though we had no idea, obviously, at the time. So, Undertaker obviously prevails. Triple H lost. Triple H doesn't have a really good track record at WrestleMania. Anyways, we all know that Undertaker, he's the Phenom. He had the undefeated record for a long time, lost at WrestleMania 30 and then at 33. So, I mean, we all know that. The real big match for WrestleMania 17 is Rock and Austin. I mean, this is the biggest piece of business that the WWF had ever done at the time. It's the greatest rivalry in company history, obviously besides Vince and Austin. And, the story of the match is that both men needing to prove who is the best in the World Wrestling Federation and who was going to do the necessary things to beat the other to win. This was right, Austin was coming off his neck surgery. He was on his way back on the mend. He was making the big comeback. The writing was on the wall that Austin was going to win. One thing that I do want to point out is that they added, so at the time, Austin was married to Deborah McMichael in Shoot. So she was also his manager at the time. And they somehow added Deborah as Rock's manager. Deborah's completely lost in this whole thing. Deborah should have never been added. Very forgettable that Deborah was even added. She's a part of the package. And, the package, this WrestleMania promo is the best piece of footage that has ever been produced in wrestling. It's the greatest of all time. The song matches exactly what they're doing in the matches. It matches the story. Just the way that the show built to this moment, it's the greatest of all time. So basically what happened, and even in this build, before we even get to see this vignette, they had the Friday before, or Thursday at that time, I believe, they had a sit-down interview with JR and The Rock and Stone Cold, and it's some of the best sit-down interview stuff that has ever happened. It's so good. Basically, Steve Austin saying, "I need to beat you, Rock. I need it more than anything you can ever imagine." And, Rock saying, "Blood, sweat, and tears. I'm going to beat you." It's just so good. So good. It's the best time. It's, I love, as I've stated before, I I love the Ruthless Aggression era, but this build to this WrestleMania is the best build to any WrestleMania that's ever happened. It's just so good. So WrestleMania 17 is in Steve's hometown. It's obviously his crowning moment. He's come back. It's the rematch of WrestleMania 15. Steve comes out to the enormous reaction, and the match is a huge brawl. And this match, they did some telling things early that made you, and I didn't know this at the time. I can't remember where I heard this, but they were talking about how if you watch the match and what Steve does in the beginning when he rolls out of the ring and he grabs the chair, I believe, or I can't, shoot, it's slipping my mind right now. But when Steve rolls out of the ring, he cowered out to show you what was going to happen at the end. And everything that happens in this match means nothing because it's all about the ending. This match is forever remembered for what happened at the end. And obviously, what happens is one of the strangest things that has ever happened. Like I had said, the biggest rivalry in the company was Rock and Austin. But the other biggest rivalry that trumps that, Austin and Vince. Well, Vince comes down to the ring. It looks like, Vince is going to attack Steve. Vince gets in the ring, beats Rock with a chair, and then Steve takes the chair from Vince and he starts beating Rock with a chair. Steve just kept beating him with his chair, gets down, does the 1, 2, 3. Steve wins with the help of Vince McMahon. And as the show closes, they shake hands. And, JR had the really good call of Steve sold his soul to the devil to beat The Rock and become champion. It's one of the most shocking turns in wrestling history. Obviously not the biggest shock. The biggest, obviously, is whenever Hogan, forms the NWO. But it's Austin's heel turn. And this is where I believe that the Attitude Era died. That very moment when Austin turned heel, I think that the Attitude Era died. Austin turning heel is something that he wanted to do for a long, long time. As JR has mentioned before, it's like John Wayne being a bad guy. People don't want to cheer. People don't want to boo you. People want to cheer for you. They want to come see you. They want to have a good time with you. And, this is something that Steve has said numerous times. It's his biggest regret ever in the business was ever turning heel. So as we're going here, the team isn't formed yet. The very next night on Raw, that is how WrestleMania 17 ends, with Austin and Vince shaking hands. So we move on to Monday Night Raw the next night, and it is announced that they're going to do a rematch of the main event. They're going to do Rock versus Austin in a steel cage. And Vince is in the ring. He comes down and he hands the title to Steve. They cement themselves as conspirators together, and it's basically Austin cementing himself as the heel. And this is everything that we didn't want from Steve. This is everything that Steve stood against. And it's just, he went full heel in his promo, and the people were really starting to turn. But this is at the point where I'm not sure that, yes, he was getting the reaction that he wanted, but it was like, go away reaction. Like, this isn't what we want. This isn't what we signed up for. So after they get out of the ring, a little bit later backstage, Triple H stops Vince, and he asks why he wasn't in the fold for what happened the previous night. And if you're watching in storyline, over the entire year, Triple H was, aligned with Vince, and Vince had ordered him to beat the crap out of Steve every chance he got. So it's kind of weird where, like, Triple H is like, how could you not include me? And I've been the one that's been beating him up this entire year. How can you not tell me? And the interaction ends with Vince reminding Triple H that, well, you lost to Undertaker last night and Steve won, and he just, keeps walking away. The end of the night, they have the match, the Austin versus Rock steel cage, and we all know what happens. Vince gets in there, they start beating the crap out of Rock with the chair again, and it's like, This is why. Why is he beating the crap out of him with a steel chair? Like it was so strange. And then all of a sudden Triple H's music hits and the crowd like pops huge. And it's like, is Triple H going to come save Rock and turn on Vince and turn on Austin? Well, that's not exactly what happened. Pretty much, Triple H just grabbed a chair, started beating the crap out of him, gave him the pedigree, and that is how the two-man power trip was formed. And that's how they go off air. Like I had said, these are the kind of teams that don't ever happen. The only time I can really think of another team that is of similar caliber is a two-man power trip. The Dudes with Attitudes, because you have two guys that were top guys in the business. You had Shawn Michaels and Diesel. They were Intercontinental Champion and World Champion. They had been tag champions. The same with H and Austin. They're your premier top talents, and now they're together in a team. How do you book that? Especially whenever Austin is the world champion. So moving on to SmackDown a few nights later, the show starts with all three of them backstage. Vince gives Triple H an IC title match against Chris Jericho. Steve is also given an interview with JR to explain himself and why they did what they did. Vince comes out, does a typical promo where he's healing. Vince suspends Rock from WWF. I believe at the time Rock was going to do a movie, which is the reason why he was written off. But I can't quite remember. Anyways, so later in the show they get to the JR interview in the ring. It's a very memorable one. And this is because of what happened to JR. Pretty much Austin beats the absolute tar out of JR in the ring. And I believe this is where JR has talked in his book about how Austin uses a surgical blade to blade him, and he bled like a stuck hog, and it was so bad. So bad. JR knew that this was a really bad idea because Austin was starting to do things that aren't Austin-like. And obviously, this is a really bad look. And it's because now the people are really turning on Austin. And it's not that they're turning because, yes, he's being a heel. It's because it's like, man, come on. Like, this isn't good at all. So later on in the show, obviously, Triple H has the match with Jericho for the IC title. Jericho pretty much had the match won, but then there was interference from Steph and Vince, and H took advantage and becomes the IC champion. So now the two-man power trip, you have Austin as the WWF champion, and you have Triple H as the IC champion. So now they got the two biggest singles titles in the company. So that's how the show goes off the air, and now we move on to Raw is War. That is 2 weeks after WrestleMania. They end up attacking the Hardys. It sets up an IC title match between Jeff Hardy and Triple H on SmackDown later in the week. And this is where Jeff Hardy pulls the upset and becomes the IC champion. So Triple H wins the IC title on SmackDown the previous week, loses it the next week to Jeff, and now the seeds of doubt are already planting for, like, can we really trust Triple H? Is he really that good? And so now we move on to Raw. Triple H, he wanted a rematch against Jeff, obviously, to get the IC title back. Matt Hardy and Steve were both banned from ringside. So during the match, Austin finds Matt, attacks him so that there can't be any interference. And it didn't even matter because Austin and Vince came down anyways to help Triple H win the IC title back. So he had lost it on SmackDown, gains it back on Raw. They're just down there beating the tar out of Jeff. And then all of a sudden, the music hits. And who is it? The Brothers of Destruction come to save Jeff. And this is what sets up the big tag feud. So now you have Austin as your world champion. You have Triple H as your IC champion. And now you have the guys that were fighting for the tag championships, the Brothers of Destruction, who are also a weird team. Not weird because of like storyline, that makes total sense, but because they're some of their top talent. Now you have all four of your top talents who are involved in tag teams, and they're all in the feud now. So like now your card is loaded in one spot. Again, it's back to how do you book this? So if we move on from the Raw, move into SmackDown, The Brothers of Destruction, they have a match against Edge and Christian. They become the tag team champions in that match. And immediately, as soon as they win, Austin and H attack the ring, attack the Brothers of Destruction, and it is set up for a match that weekend at Backlash 2001. Now, Backlash 2001, this is where the weirdness happens, but this is where the issues of booking happen. So you have Austin as your world champion, you have H as your IC champion, now you have the Brothers of Destruction as your tag champions. They do a winner-take-all tag match, so if Taker pins Austin, Taker becomes world champion, Kane becomes IC champion, and then they retain their titles. And it goes for then obviously if the Power Trip wins, they get all the gold, and they have every single title that is available for male competitors on the roster. They have all of them. I'm sure you can kind of guess it. They win that, and now they do exactly what the dudes with attitudes did. They're the chaps with the straps. They're draped in gold. The way that they did the winner take all match was way too confusing. Had way too many stipulations. It is a really fun match to watch. I encourage everyone to go watch Backlash 2001 because it is a fun main event. But it can get confusing if you weren't watching it with no context of like, why is there a winner take all match, and it doesn't make much sense. So they continuously do this for a few more weeks, and it leads to the next pay-per-view, which is Judgment Day 2001. And in Judgment Day 2001 is Triple H versus Kane in a chain match. H loses after Austin accidentally hits H with the chair. He was swinging for Kane, and Kane ducks and he hits H. And Kane capitalizes on that. Triple H gets absolutely furious at Austin for this. Main event was Austin and Taker in a no-holds-barred match. Now, the no-holds-barred match was, again, these two matches were really, really good. But H and Vince interfere, try to help out Austin. Austin, again, accidentally goes to hit Undertaker, ends up hitting Vince. He accidentally hit somebody again with a chair, inadvertently. Austin does come out on top because Triple H does get in there and hit Taker with a sledgehammer. And, then obviously Austin can get in there and win. But you can see that there's the seeds of doubt and where the booking was leading to them eventually breaking up, which is totally fine because how do you break these guys up? It's hard to book them. Your card is so loaded. So it's like one of those things, what do you do? So you got to break them up. The Raw after Judgment Day, Austin is interrupted by Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit had won a tag team championship opportunity the previous night at Judgment Day. And they demand their shot against Triple H and Austin for their World Tag Team Championships. This match happens, and this is where the power trip ends. And it ends in a dramatic fashion. This is where Triple H tears his quad off the bone, the infamous tear. He somehow continues throughout the match. He gets put in the walls. He's standing on it. It's an absolute display of heart and everything. Like, no one, it's an insane thing that Triple H did here. It just is insane. It's like, how do you continue to have a match with your quad blown off the bone? It's insane. This is where Triple H then obviously had to. This was the end of the road, and this leads us right into the invasion. And this is where this is clearly where the Attitude Era has officially been killed dead. We're gonna cover the invasion in long form sometime, and I don't want to do it by myself because I want to bring in somebody that lived through the time. Obviously, we'll probably bring in Andretti for something like that. He was somebody who's really tuned in with the time, remembers it very vividly. There's just the invasion is one of those things one of those what could have beens. One of the things I want to do now is like I've painted the picture of what the power trip was. It was basically Triple H and Steve Austin beating the absolute tar out of people with chairs. It's something that's very short-lived, but clearly it's something that didn't work. Nobody wanted to boo Steve. People didn't mind booing H. H was totally okay with being a heel, but it's just one of those things where it just didn't work. It was a really high risk that had little reward. It's really what led to the end of Austin's career, because if you look at Austin's career after this, the next WrestleMania he faces Scott Hall. He does the infamous walkout after that WrestleMania. Now he does come back and he does have his swan song against Rock, where they end the trilogy at WrestleMania 19, which I think is right behind WrestleMania 17 in terms of, WrestleMania ranking WrestleManias. But it really spills disaster for Austin. This was not very good. It really, 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 really hurt Austin in the long run. And it's just, it catapulted Triple H, because then he came back as a babyface. He goes on to win the Undisputed Championship at WrestleMania 18. He becomes World Heavyweight Champion. Later in 2002, it really lifted Triple H up, and it brought down Austin in the long scheme of things. It's just one of those things that it could have been really, really cool. And that's the reason why they don't do this very often, is because you don't put two of your best guys in a tag team together, because it in the end, it never really works out well for either guy. And now it did work out really well for H, but you can say that it worked out really well for Austin, but he had a shelf life anyways, and he was coming to the end of that shelf life. It's just one of those things that you could have done something a lot different and a lot better with Austin, and they didn't. All in all, I'm going to say that as the two-man power trip is a really cool tag team, probably not a very good tag team long run if we're looking back with revisionist history. So, but yeah, what do you guys think? Please let us know on Twitter at @the_Podski. Let us know at @the_Podski on Instagram. Let us know on Facebook at the Podski with John Baker. What you think? All right, that was my review of the two-man power trip, an infamous tag team of the 2001s. Really want to apologize if you do hear any coughing in there. I was sick last week. I'm still got a lingering cough. I'm trying to cover it up in the audio here, but want to thank all of you for listening. Hopefully you checked out the 11 Minutes documentary from a few weeks back. That's still a really good episode to listen to. If you haven't checked that out yet, please do. Might have some more episodes coming out. There's a really good documentary out right now that Allison and I just started. It's called God Forbid on Hulu. It's about the president and his wife of Liberty University and how they had a sexual relationship with a person. It's a sick, twisted documentary that we just started it last night, so we're definitely going to continuously check that out. We're probably going to do a show on that. We also checked out the Barney. If you ever remember Barney the dinosaur, they have a documentary on Peacock. You should definitely check that out. I thought it was really, really well done. We might talk about that too in the future. Who knows? But yeah, so make sure you're checking out the Halloween Super Show. Really got to give a huge shout out and thanks to beautiful Bobby Winters and Justin Andretti for coming on the show and doing that. That was a lot of fun, sharing stories. We're definitely going to do that again. We got some really good stuff coming up here. We got a Thanksgiving show, and we're going to do something really cool for the Christmas show. But yeah, make sure you're checking out That's So Dolphins Talk. Don't forget to download, rate, review, subscribe. We're on everywhere you get your podcasts, and we will see you. We're going to see you Sunday for another That's So Dolphins Talk. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at @the_Podski, on the Instagram at @the_Podski, and Facebook. And we'll see you next time on The Podski.